You don't wake up one day with a broken life. You actually drift into it, one unexamined decision at a time. In this episode today, we're going to confront a hard truth that there are two paths ahead of you, and you're walking right now down one of them that leads to a very different outcome. One builds peace and confidence and meaning into your life, and the other will cost you time, relationships, momentum, your health. So, today you're going to be challenged to get brutally honest with yourself about where the current path that you're on is leading, and you're going to be challenged to face the cost of not deciding to go down a different path, the better path. And you're going to be challenged to stop living by default and start designing your life and your future. And this isn't about fear so much as it's about clarity. You can recognize the fear in your life and you can just muscle through. Okay, well, and clarity is different. Clarity is saying yes to what I want. And it's saying yes to yourself, to doing what it takes to actually get there. Clarity is most often, the very first turning point in someone's life. So today's episode is called You're Already Writing Your Story. Choose the Ending. Welcome to the Decide Your Legacy podcast. I'm Adam Gragg. I'm a coach and a family therapist. I'm the founder of Decide Your Legacy. And what we do is help leaders and their teams face the issues that are holding them back so they can commit and find clarity to taking productive action and make progress that sticks. And from my point of view, everybody's a leader. So you're influencing your neighbors, your family, the people you interact with on a day-to-day basis. People are watching you. Every episode, I like to share one thing that I have done that is challenging, because nothing is more important to your mental health and your confidence than not playing it safe. So nothing is more damaging than playing it safe. So what I did is I have engaged a program called self-authoring. And this was designed, I believe, by Dr. Jordan Peterson. It's not very expensive. I think it's costing me $25 to go through, but it is hard. It's hard because it requires you to do self-reflection and gain awareness. And it requires you to answer some hard questions about your past and the future as well. You get very clear. And so this podcast is inspired by my effort to go through this program. And I'm going through it slowly. I've challenged two other people on my team to go through it as well. So the first place that I often start with, and the reason I mention that as a brave action is because I don't see a whole lot of things braver than facing ourselves and being honest with ourselves and telling ourselves the truth about ourselves and the decisions that we're making. It's brave because it's painful, because you have to be able to share with yourself what you're doing that's not really helping you. And in the process, you're hopefully going to share it with some other people as well. So everybody at every moment has a vision for their future. They just don't actually know it, and they haven't clarified it. This is one of the challenging parts of coaching. When I first engage somebody, I am trying to gain a sense of how honest they are with themselves about the direction that they're heading in their life. And are they recognizing the pitfalls that they're stepping right into? Are they recognizing the potential that they're not pursuing? We all have a vision. Most people don't clarify it. And amazingly, our brains will channel into whatever we focus on the most. That's what happens when we're anxious. We're focusing on what can go wrong, not what can go right. And it's not bad to focus on what can go wrong, but it's the proportion of your emotional energy that you're dedicating to that at the time. You're overdoing it. You're overthinking it. That's really what people mean when they say don't overthink. You're not thinking about the good nearly as much as you could and should as well. So today we're going to talk about 3 decisions that you can decide to make to shift your paths, to create this much better, to pursue this better vision, to go down a path towards a much better future. And you're going to want to really take some action today. So stick with me this whole episode, because all three of these decisions in conjunction are essential to creating a better future. First decision is, I would find it's the most difficult one of all three, because they build on each other. But the first decision is to focus on the bad times ahead. If you keep doing what you've been doing that hasn't gotten you where you want to go. Not fun. I get it. But it's this avoidance of looking at the decisions we've made that weren't helpful. Because we don't want to make them again, we avoid learning the lessons from them. When there's excellent data that you can get and evidence that you can gain from seeing the bad stuff that you've done in the past. And we're not talking about criminal behavior here. We're talking about these subtle things to avoid and procrastinate. These subtle decisions we make to not pursue our goals and to pursue someone else's goals, to not focus on our potential and our strengths. These subtle decisions to get stuck in worry, in people-pleasing, in being dishonest with ourselves, in perfectionism. So it's not that you can't do it. It's that often we don't want to do it. I would suggest that only about 10% of people I encounter are regular journalers, because it's painful and because it's a habit that takes time. Not nearly as much time as you think, but it does take some effort and energy. It takes really healthy energy, but it does take energy. Recently, I asked a friend this question that I've learned through this coaching program that I'm in called Strategic Coach. And Dan Sullivan's been very inspiring to me. He calls it the R factor question. And I believe everybody, good coaches, they ask a similar version of this question in different formats. But I asked her if to picture herself in 3 years, because most people want to make progress over the next 3 years. If you don't, I'd be highly surprised. You want to make progress. And I said, if I'm having a conversation with you, Stacy, it's not her real name, but I'm going to make it up. If I'm having a conversation with you in 3 years, what decisions would you have made personally and professionally if I'm having that conversation with you and you're very happy with your progress, not someone else's progress, not the business's progress, not your husband's progress, but if you're really happy with your progress, what decisions would you have made over those 3 years? And her answer was, I don't think about the future like that. It was an avoidance, escape, basically. And then she thought about it. And actually, this friend, she journaled about it and gave me this one-page summary after she had thought about it for a while. If you can't go down that path, it's pretty hard for you to grow. If you can't think that it could be better in the future. And what I find is that people who won't go down that path, they have this needs mentality, rather than a wants mentality. They haven't given themselves permission to want something great, to want something big. I mean, people generally, I find, enjoy desiring something bigger and better in their future. So if they had this dream of having a lake house at some point where they can journal and have their friends and hang out and do fun water sports, well, if they're not thinking about it right now, I would guarantee you that just planning it and getting some kind of idea in your mind of what it could be is going to be a healthy action for you. In this, let's go out and think about the damage that we've done to ourselves. Why do we do damage to our own lives? Because we are stuck in this we're not good enough mentality. I would say it's shame. Shame leads to self-sabotage. Shame leads to just continually telling ourselves, I could be better. I'm going to mess up. I don't know if I can do it. I can't do it. I won't try. And why do we do that? Because success is scary. Because we haven't been there before. It's new. Change is scary, the good and the bad change. But you have an opportunity to learn from what you've done in the past and say, I'm going to change that now because those habits are not serving me well. A really fun activity, if you want to engage this, I wouldn't say it's fun after you do it, but if you look at a bad habit that you actually have, like let's say just procrastination, for example, or let's say you use nicotine like I've had a struggle with, and you go ahead and do a Google search and you say, what's the damage of procrastination, or what is the damage on my health of nicotine? And you honestly read that article. If you don't really want, if you don't really want to grow, then you're not going to be willing to go ahead and look and count the cost. But if you want to grow, you'll read through that, you'll get some data, and it's going to start to give you clarity that's going to shift. So here's the second big decision, that if you want a better future, you got 2 futures ahead and you want to take the path that's the much better path. Get very clear about your good times ahead, this very good vision. So dream about the business you want to have in 10 years. Dream about the health that you want to have in 10 years. Dream about the marriage you want to have in 10 years. Dream and put it on paper about the fun that you want to have in the next 10 years and the habits that you would build to actually get there and what decisions you would make to get there. So I recently interviewed a guest on the podcast, and it was the last episode that was launched recently. And so it's a guy who owns a dental practice. And I've seen how in his effort to create the practice of his dreams that it's been super exciting and energizing. And what I've noticed is that for Stacy, he's fought this past vision decision thing, which is pulling him in a negative direction, and replacing that with this good, powerful, energizing vision in the future. And I was very proud of him for being a guest, because I know it was terrifying for him, because he couldn't picture himself actually speaking in front of people. Some people have a big fear with public speaking. I know I definitely did for years and years. But I can only tell, and I can only imagine that he was able to step in and speak about the culture he's built because he saw a vision for himself becoming a better public speaker. Really amazing. I recently had a client who, after some challenges in a relationship, he decided, well, actually, his wife decided that they were going to explore this vision of building a house together and creating this future together, when they had been living in some ways not dreaming together, not planning this future together. And this one step of faith to say, hey, let's make the next 30 years of our life better than the last, was energizing and is energizing. And I'm seeing how that's transforming their relationship and transforming their mental focus on a regular basis. So if you get excited, you start to see the good stuff that is available for you in the future. And if you want to really work on this, one of the challenges I give to clients at the beginning of coaching is to think about the 7 opportunities they have over the next 5 years and to write those things down. And those opportunities are relationships, growing in relationships. Those opportunities are going to be purpose, impacting other people's lives through your unique calling and your unique purpose. Those 7 opportunities are going to relate to fun and health and new experiences. Those 7 opportunities are going to get you energized, but you write them down and you start engaging them on a regular basis. So if you found this podcast helpful today, I would challenge you to check out Shatterproof Yourself LITE. This is a free mini course on 7 small steps to build your confidence. You have a worksheet and a video. You go through that. You write down your answers, which of course I'm going to challenge you to do. And you're going to find in each step you have an action to commit to. You do that, it's going to have a huge impact on your life. So here's the third decision, big decision. And it's also the one where you get the most change, because you're going to see results right away when you do this. And that decision is to act on this good future. So you've decided to create a picture of what your future is going to look like if you keep falling into these bad habits and idiosyncrasies and things that are holding you back. You decided to create a future that is built on these new good decisions, these new good habits that you know are right there for you to grasp and to take. And now you're going to decide to determine and get clarity on the actions that you will take that will lead you towards this better future. I heard a quote recently at a workshop, and it was, I hear and I forget, I see and I remember, I do and I understand. That's Confucius, who was a Chinese philosopher, 500 years before Christ, and still has influential sayings that people say frequently. And there's one that I don't think was from Confucius that I say that's kind of funny. And I'm not going to say it right now, but it's important to take action. I see a lot of people around me in the coaching community who do mindset coaching. And I do mindset coaching. I believe in changing your mindset. I think it's an essential thing for us to get clarity and recognize it and then take action to replace it. There is something that is missing, and this is what I saw as I was doing coaching for a decade. There was a big part of this process of change that was missing. And I believe, as I look back, I did a disservice to my clients by not helping them with this one aspect. And that aspect is that you must do something in the face of your fear to replace that mindset, or it will not stick. So if you are just telling yourself that, I'm good enough, or I add value, and I believe in myself, and these are all great mindset shifts to make and good things to tell yourself based on facts and evidence, which I believe there will be if you're listening to this podcast, that you are good enough, that you have ways that you add value because you want to get better at it, or you wouldn't be listening to this episode. But here's the thing, is if you are not holding yourself first and foremost accountable to taking action to prove to yourself that you can reach out to people and talk confidently and help people, then you're never going to get that shift that you believe that you can do this long term, because the confidence only comes after you take action. It does not come before. You're not going to feel it before you take the action, but you do it anyway, and you realize that your competency is growing in the process. So the coaches that I have had, and I've had a lot, because since I started Decide Your Legacy in 2012, I've been committed through that process to having a coach. And why? Because I can't see my life clearly. I need a neutral perspective outside, asking me the hard questions and holding me accountable so that I'm following up and doing the stuff that I'm being challenged to do. And I put my money and I invest my money in that because I see it as a very worthwhile, in fact, incredibly worthwhile endeavor. I would say that through the coaches that I have had and have now, that I've had tenfold return on my investment. The one thing the coaches do to me, well, besides just helping me, asking the questions, the most important thing they do is they hold me accountable. They ask me if I followed through on whatever that commitment is that I made. And you can do the same for yourself. You can hire a coach, which is something I would recommend, to hire a good coach. And a great question to ask them if you're hiring a coach is, so what coaching have you gotten yourself and how has that impacted your life? And you'll see the coaches that I feel are the best coaches, they're always investing into their own coaching process by getting accountability and gaining insight into themselves. And I had another good friend recently say to me that he wanted to become a therapist. So he's been an engineer for a number of years, a chemical engineer, and he has had this desire to have a bigger, not that that's not having a big impact, because I feel like you can have an impact in all professions outside of drug dealing and prostitution, and there are professions that are not going to have a positive impact, but he's having an impact. He didn't feel like he's having the kind of impact that he was gifted to have. And I would agree, because I've known him a long time. And so he wants to start this process at age 51 to become a therapist. All right, so good stuff. And in the conversations that I've had with him, I see him engaging this bad future and this good future at the same time. I see him shifting. So he did some research into counseling programs in the process, and I could see him telling himself, and even telling me, the acceptance rate is so low, and I don't have the prerequisite classes. I'm going to have to go back and get those before I can even apply. And the licensure process is so difficult, and I've made so many mistakes. How can I help somebody else? So I see this future coming out. He has a clear future, but it's not a really good one, and it's not a truth-based future as well. And then I see him talk to me and some programs, and then he gets some hope. Like, the demand for therapists is high, especially for men, and it's high in general. Since COVID, I believe it's probably gotten higher as well. So I see him telling himself the truth and telling himself lies. It's just, what is he going to pay the most attention to in the process? And at times he's paying attention to the truth. At times it's the lies. But then what actions is he willing to take based on the truth? So if you want to let go of your past because you know it impacts you greatly, well, you have to be able to tell yourself, you have to be able to ask yourself and answer honestly, what am I telling myself that harms me? And you have to be able to ask yourself the question is, where did I learn that about myself? What experiences did I go through that told me that I wasn't good enough, or I couldn't become a therapist, or I couldn't have the success I want in my life? And then the final part is this decision that you're making right now. You're choosing to take action. You're saying to yourself, what actions will I take that are contradictory to the bad things that I keep telling myself about myself? And it's all a matter of the energy we're putting into each, the good future or the bad future. So I was talking to some clients again last Monday, two guys that own a business together. And for some reason, the conversation entered into the realm of jealousy versus envy. And so it's something that I've thought of, and I don't know that most people are really clear on this, but to me, I don't see jealousy and envy. I see jealousy as a good thing. I see envy as a bad thing. So, and here's what I mean. It's all in the scope of our attention. If I'm jealous about something and I'm able to say, that is really something I wish I had. I wish I had that great marriage, or I wish I had that shit. I wish I was in that kind of health at 52, or I wish I had a business that was running so smoothly, or I wish I had the opportunities they have financially because of the condition they're in versus the one that I'm in. All of that can be used as motivation and fuel for you to say, like, I want to make changes in my life because those changes are going to have a big impact on my future and the impact I can have. Envy is where you're going to the extreme, saying those things that they have, I want, and I don't want them to have them as well because I don't believe I can actually have them. And I don't want other people to have things that I don't actually have. So you're basically cursing them. You're looking at their life and saying that I can't have that, but I don't want them to have it as well. They're very much confused in our culture, at least in the language people use, because they'll look at jealousy as being negative and envy as being negative as well. They're both the same in many people's mindset, I believe. But I want you to shift it here. So you make the decision to take action towards this better future and do it out of jealousy. Like, because you believe it can actually happen and you're jealous of where they are now, but you're going to get there because you're going to make decisions to actually get you there. So the action to take to work on this is to specifically write down what actions you would take if you didn't believe these lies about yourself and you were willing to take the steps out into the next phase of your life. Just like my first client that I shared, she wrote down some actions that she would take if she believes and she knows she can take to get to that better future in 3 years, to where she's sitting there talking to me and saying, I am super proud of my progress. So what are those for you? Write those down. So in review, you can do three decisions to have a better future. First one is to focus on the bad times ahead if you don't change. That's good. You know, if you keep doing what you're doing, what is it going to look like? Are you going to damage your health? Are you going to lose your marriage? Are you going to lose your business? Because you know that it's only going to exponentially grow. Bad habits exponentially grow, and so do good habits. And that's partially why they're hard to change, because the change doesn't happen immediately. It happens gradually. Number two decision is, what are the good times ahead? What are the opportunities? And get real clear on that. And it's what you want, not what you need. See, need often for people psychologically is driven. It's kind of a fear-centered mentality. I need this in order to have whatever it is that I want. You know, it's like I need it. It's a compulsion. It's a sense of urgency. So watch your language. What do you want is centered in hope, centered in potential. It's centered in, I can do something to change my life. So the third decision you make is you act. You act on these good times ahead, on this opportunity ahead. So I had the chance to get to know somebody last week. She's the mayor of our city. And I live in the Midwest here in Wichita, Kansas, the biggest city in the Midwest. And her name is Lily Wu. I believe she has been mayor for a year now. And she was a news anchor in Wichita before she decided to run for mayor. Pretty inspiring story, and she told it. So her family immigrated from China, communist China, and then she lived in South America, Guatemala, I believe, for 10 years, and she was then eventually moved to the United States. But she shared one thing that really stuck with me, and it was that when she decided to run for mayor, she was in a position where she couldn't, and I don't know whether it was her employer or whether it was her willing decision, but I get to hint that it was the employer, that she couldn't run for mayor and be the news anchor at the same time. And she decided to live off of her savings for a period of time because she had this vision for becoming mayor and the good that she could actually do in that role. She only would have done it had she gone through this process where she counted the cost, where she painted a picture of the bright future ahead, and where she was willing to take action. That first step of quitting her job and saying, I'm all in, that's the first step she took to becoming mayor because it had to have been very scary at that point, but also very, very inspiring, not only to me, but to other people who listened. Good futures overpower the bad future. So ask yourself one honest question. If nothing changes, where does that road take you? You don't need to fix everything today, but you do need clarity, and that clarity is going to take bravery. It's going to take slowing down enough to see the direction you're heading in and the direction you want to head in. And if you're ready to stop drifting and you're ready to start directing your life and designing your life, I would love to help. So we take our clients through a process called the Legacy Journey Coaching Process. It's for teams and leaders to go through, and it will help you get clear and take ownership and build a future that you're proud of, one intentional decision at a time. So you can learn more by hitting the link and checking out decideyourlegacy.com. You're already writing your story. You choose the ending. So that's what I have for you today. What have you gained, and what actions are you going to commit to taking? Take an action by the end of the day today. And if you really want it to stick, teach it to somebody else right after you've taken that first action based on what you learned. 80% of transformational change is action. 20% is insight. You gain insight today. Now it's time to take action. If you found this podcast helpful, like and subscribe wherever you get podcast content, and share it with a friend. That would help us grow and helps it reach more people organically. The word decide, it means that you are eliminating other options. And the word legacy it defines that it's the impact that your life has on other people. There's no positive change until you decide to change, and your legacy depends on it. I'm going to close the way I always do. Make it your mission to live the life today that you want to be remembered for 10 years after you're gone. You decide your legacy, nobody else. I appreciate you greatly, and I'll see you next time.